Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy Newsbeat podcast. My name's Stuart Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. Today is an outstanding day because I get to talk to my two favorite Californians, and we talk about my least favorite politician on the planet, and he is Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom is now, congratulations, Governor Newsom. You have elevated California to a national security risk, and I've got the two experts on the line. We're going to have a great topic. Ronald, Stein, author and friend of the show. How are you today, sir?
Great, sir. Glad to be aboard.
All right. And we have the Mike Umbro, not just a Mike Umbro, the Mike Umbro. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, it might not be a. There might be more of me out there. I think there is one Mike Umbro in New York. So yeah, you have a.
You guys are writing some great articles out there, and I just want to kind of ask you what is going on. We covered this in the last podcast, which went nuts. Had a lot of great downloads. People love you guys. Me, not so much. But I tell you what is going on with Governor Newsom?
Well, basically, he's been around 57 years. And in that 57 years, he has yet to comprehend that California is an energy island. We're separated from the rest of the country by the Sierra Mountains. There's no pipelines over the Sierra Mountains. So any manufacturing and crude oil fracking done in the Midwest, we have no access to that. The only way to get that oil to California is through the Panama Canal, which is very, very expensive. So we're an energy island, and we are the fourth largest economy in the world, consuming a bunch of fuel, and that fuel is all being made in state. And with current refineries starting to shut down, that fuel is not going to be made in state, and it's going to come from somewhere else. And somewhere else is not from another state in the United States. It's going to come from one of the 8 new refineries being completed in China by 2030. They'll be providing the fuel to California.
This just makes me airsick thinking that our jet fuel from China could be laced with something. This is a really big national. I'm serious.
Well, it's at least going to be laced with emissions. So I think what we're seeing right now is a lack of understanding of basic economic principles. And Governor Newsom, the California Air Resources Board, the mandates they're pushing across the California economy are not designed by them. They're designed by environmental activists. They're designed by the Sierra Club. They're designed by the Center for Biologic Diversity. They're designed by NGOs that are being canceled, thankfully, by the Trump administration, because none of these environmental policies, whether it's the refinery shutdown or the ICE vehicle ban, none of those are law. None of those are things that the people of California voted for. And that's what your listeners, Stu, need to recognize and understand. And the people of the United States need to understand. Californians are not voting for these measures. So everybody else needs to come and rally behind us instead of saying, oh, it's these crazy Californians that are voting for this. No, actually, nobody's voting for these things. Nobody has voted for any of these things. They're just mandates by Sacramento.
You know, you guys, both of you have made a great thing, because I've made a joke is I just want to put a wall up and just kind of wall off California, kind of keep the Mexico wall going right on up there. And you guys go, look, think about if you don't change California's things, it makes President Trump's numbers look bad. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I need to help and try to get this. The fact that Governor Newsom stood up in a rant and started crying that he's got more law for a 14th lawsuit against the Trump administration in the first 100 days because of this EV mandate is unconstitutional.
Well, let me give you some numbers that Newsom can't deny. California is a big state. We got 145 airports. Most of them are small, but of those 145, 9 of them take international flights,
right,
and 41 are military airports. Now, all those airports are consuming 13 million gallons of jet fuel every day. 13 million gallons every day, which is 16+% of the national total, just in California. And that jet fuel is all made in California. And, we have 10 million gallons of diesel because with 3 of the busiest ports, we're trucking all that merchandise to the rest of the country. So we're consuming, diesel fuel, which is being made here in California. Arizona and Nevada gets most of their fuel from California. And with Phillips shutting down and Valero shutting down, that fuel is going to come from somewhere. And the somewhere is going to be from 8 new refineries, and China's got coming online by 2030. China will be providing the fuel to run our military airports, to run our international airports, and to provide the fuel for the trucks to take the products to the rest of the country. Yeah, we are definitely a national security risk, and these refineries shutting down is bringing it to the top of the pile of crap.
Mike, you're you're an EMP operator that all you need is a permit. You don't need a hug. I love that line from our last podcast. And investing in oil and gas is something that Trump did on his last tour through the, I did not have that kind of a tour where we actually would have a president be treated with respect. We have our great oil and gas export as a service is actually, we've got oil and gas export as a service means there's a bromance going on. Someone from oilprice.com had that great quote. I couldn't create that one, where we've got EOG and other companies going to work with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and those things. But I like developing U.S. buy locally. You're one of the best buy locally guys I know. And how can we get Kern County rolling again? We just had one of 3 offshore wells start up again, and they got sued the day they fired it back up. You can't buy this kind of entertainment in California.
Well, that's to be expected, especially when Santa Barbara is the county you're referencing. Santa Barbara City Council just voted, I think 3-1, to pass a measure to ban all onshore oil and gas drilling in Santa Barbara County. They can't control those offshore platforms, but they can phase it out in this county ordinance. So what's happening in Sacramento is playing this game where they're giving counties primacy over these decisions. And a place like Kern County, you would have county supervisors that overwhelmingly support oil and gas production because it makes Kern County the #1 oil producing county in the lower 48 in 2013, not that long ago. And so we know that potential exists. So to answer your question on unleashing Kern County, I think we'll see President Trump and Secretary Wright and Secretary Zeldin and Secretary Berger, maybe not all together, hopefully all together, but I think they should come to Kern County. And it's the poster child for local energy dominance, for buying local energy. Because if there's one county that can be unleashed more than any other county in the United States, it's Kern County. And you only know that if you're a developer there or you care deeply about that environment, that economy, that energy complex. It's all 3 of those things. We're talking about energy, environment, and the economy. We're going to need the energy. That's why Trump went back to Saudi Arabia and he's doing deals with the Middle. We're going to need their oil. We're going to need Middle Eastern oil for decades to come. And that's the reality of it. And President Trump gets that. He's a businessman. And what we're seeing in Sacramento is an alignment with China for lithium batteries, for photovoltaic solar cells, for all of our critical minerals, and now refined product into the California market. Sacramento is choosing to align with Beijing over Bakersfield. That's a problem. Why would you put Beijing over Bakersfield, Governor Newsom? Why?
Kind of like Senator Kennedy in the when he was talking to Secretary Wright. Normally, Senator Kennedy's funny as all hay, and he was at a loss for words. I'm over here as a talking podcast goob, and I'm going, this is bad. And that's about all I got. I was like, holy smokes, I can't even come up with I need a hug or something. This is like not good. I think the contracts are already signed. I think that if we really dug into it and you could look at Governor Newsom's desk, I'm going to accuse you right now, Governor Newsom, come on this podcast and tell us that you haven't signed a deal already, please.
Well, what Mike was talking about the oil is the interesting thing is we really don't need oil. We need the products from oil. we're a materialistic society.
Right.
And I've said this on TV. If there's another way to make the products, I'm all for it. We've had 200 years to replace oil and been unable to do it. It's the oil derivatives that makes all the infrastructures we have today that didn't exist 200 years ago. And one of the things that Newsom doesn't address on his EV mandates is the reality. California's a big state. We got 400,000 miles of roadway in the entire state. And we are pay the most for taxes on fuel. And those taxes basically accumulate like $8.8 billion to maintain those 400,000 miles of roadway. Now, two things. One, he's mandating heavier vehicles to ride on those 400,000 miles of roadway. And the $8.8 billion in taxes is going to go away if we stop using fuel. So you're going to tear up the roads and have less money to maintain the roads. That's what he's mandating.
So that's why they're going to 15-minute cities.
Well, it's unnecessary too. That's why you're seeing the U.S. Senate strike down the ICE vehicle ban, because it's not, number one, it's not possible. Number two, the data doesn't support it. We're currently in California, about 20% of new vehicle sales are so you're nowhere near 50% market penetration with $7,500 subsidies per vehicle. So,
and those are going away.
And those are going away. And the only way to support them in California, which people are starting to uncover, is climate fees and programs passed on at the gasoline pump. We pay 55 cents a gallon, and that will only go up so California can incentivize electrification. So it's this cascading effect of being costlier and costlier for somebody to pay for, and a lack of adoption. So how could you make that a law? How could you make that a law in 2035? It will break it, and arguably it already has broken the California economy.
I want to ask a real question, because the hybrid story to me seems like a better story. And I think that Toyota was, of the car manufacturers, the leading in hybrid technology. I don't want to buy Tesla. I'd love to buy a Tesla Cybertruck, but it won't pull my 3 trailers. I mean, it'd kind of like go a mile. It just, my backhoe would be sitting on the side of the road and somebody would have stole it by now. So I got to have a 350. And if you made a 350 hybrid, kind of might start cutting down some of the mileage. I wonder why the hybrids haven't kicked in more.
Well, as an engineer, I thought that's fantastic. You buy a hybrid, you know your gas mileage instantaneously.
Right.
Is,
and half the batteries, and you don't have the weight. It just check.
You're using less fuel, and it's the way to go. But everybody's bought into the EVs or nothing. And it's, the interesting thing, the EV is 100% made with oil. The tires, the insulation, the wires, the computers, everything. And even the battery, the lithium and the cobalt, all the mining. Well, that mining equipment is made from fossil fuels. It's powered by fuel. And like I say, it's 100% oil vehicle.
Well, I think what we need to do, we won't have time today, but in this broader conversation, is explain to people that energy is a hybrid system. We're about 80% fossil fuel driven globally in terms of energy consumed.
I need a hug.
Well, renewables are coming online, and that's kind of the non-combustion hybrid element that's coming on and slowly being adopted. But it's, in any scenario, it's not 100% of one technology. It's not 100% electric vehicle or hydrogen vehicle. It's not. It's just not. And so the general public needs to understand very simple terms like that. Like, we need all of it. Okay, let's agree to that. And then now we need it affordable. And I think that's what you're seeing the federal government try to do by way of, trumping these Newsom mandates. He's literally trumping the climate agenda. It's not going to happen. The climate agenda is not going to happen for the next 4 years. It's done.
I think Ronald was just getting a call from President Trump. So
I denied it. No, I thought it was Newsom.
Newsom was calling, because he wanted to be on the podcast. He heard my invitation. No,
he wants to be on that blue sofa back there hanging out.
Oh, there you go. No, I don't want him anywhere near me because the oil slick. Like we were joking before, I swear, if he went surfing in the bay, we would have a bigger ecological disaster, bigger than the Exxon Valdez with Greaseball diving in. I swear he should be not allowed to dive in the ocean. That was it, Mike.
The good thing about getting rid of oil, you won't have any grease to comb his hair.
Yeah, it's kind of terrible here.
Well, I think on that, since I've got that platform behind me, and you talked about the platform coming online in Santa Barbara, bringing 6,000 barrels a day online, just by coming back online at $60 oil. That's about $130 million a year just in top line revenue to that one platform operation. But there's 3 platforms there, and they're planning to ramp up to 60,000 barrels a day. And that's how much oil is just offshore Santa Barbara off 3 platforms in the Santa Ynez complex
that have been there forever.
That we know were there because the Chumash were coating their boats and their homes with the brea that was seeping out of the ground and still seeps out of the ground. But that 60,000 barrels a day is $1.3 billion in revenue at $60 oil. So these are the things Governor Newsom needs to recognize. Oil and gas, not only is it totally abundant, it's totally affordable. It creates jobs. It improves the environment by reducing natural seeps into our oceans, and producing the product responsibly. It can pay for his hair gel bill. It can pay for everything, whatever you want to talk about. But again, it goes back to these NGOs that have controlled the narrative, that have bought and paid for these city council members to believe the nonsense that we should shut down our own people's jobs and import a product with worse environmental impact and then bring it to our grid or our fuel tanks at a higher price. It's the greatest Ponzi scheme ever created, is the climate and programs that we're paying for.
Mike, do you see that it getting any better with USAID and the other Doge and the other sources of their funding appear to be drying up? Do you see it getting any less painful from these NGOs?
I absolutely. I think the era of those big climate NGOs is over, at least for 4 years, as it should be. And now the Department of Energy and the federal government can get back to funding research and grants that are actually meaningful work, that where you see all the posts on X where on USA, like this tiny fraction of the dollars are actually going to the people that need it. And 80% of it is just like vanishing and it's gone. That's why it was so important to get rid of the Green New scam. It's not. And look, I'm a developer of geotests. I'm a developer using concentrated solar. I'm a developer integrating technologies. And I still don't believe that these programs should exist in the function they were under President Biden, because there was so much waste, fraud, and abuse. So yeah, I do think it's going to get better because they're going to cancel the NGOs getting money out of all of these grants. And then they're going to put the money actually into the projects in our national laboratories that we have control and oversight over, that we can visibly audit and say, okay, where is every dollar? If it is a subsidy or a grant, let's make sure every one of those dollars goes to the developer or the national laboratory that's partnered with that developer. All of it stays in the United States.
Are there Utah and Wyoming and several others are major oil producing states on federal land? Is there a lot of federal land that can be opened up for oil and gas exploration?
In Kern County, there's a tremendous amount. When you look at the acreage, it's checkerboarded throughout the west side of the San Joaquin Valley between private land and federal land. So there's big opportunity in California for sure.
Because everybody's talking about peak oil and peak Permian oil. And I have to say that I do not believe that peak oil is here yet, because as Ronald has pointed out aptly, that we need products. And I think that as long as India is doing extremely well and is going to become the largest oil importer, if China can get back on its feet and the trading bloc with the EU is more solidified and they can replace the United States money that they were shipping to us with money that they're now shipping to the EU, and the EU becomes slaves to China, that's going to be a lot of oil demand that's going to be going on. I see great things for the United States. I'd love to see those refineries not close. Holy smokes. But I wouldn't want to do business with Governor Newsom.
Well, Mike, so are you on oil. The thing that Newsom doesn't recognize is that we're a materialistic society. And to support all the infrastructures we have, that's the only source we have right now is oil. He's got no backup plan. He wants to get rid of oil. Well, if you get rid of oil, we populated from 1 to 8 billion people in 200 years, not because of oil, because of the products. We have hospitals, we have airports, sanitation, we got, running water. It's amazing. We're just a materialistic society. And right now, oil is the only known way to support that need. And you get rid of oil, you probably get rid of a couple billion people. We're going back to the 1800s.
I just did a piece on the California water, which is related to oil, because you got to have a lot of oil to frack. I don't know how much fracking goes on in Kern County or in those other areas. Are they primarily standard, typical well types where they're not doing a lot of fracking? Or
fracking was banned by Governor Newsom via executive order. So right around 2013, when we were the top producing county in the lower 48, fracking was helping to unleash production and reserves. Right. Today, there's no fracking. There is a lawsuit, though, filed by Chevron and ERA, the larger operators in California, regarding hydraulic fracturing. And I think it's, from what I understand, going well. But in terms of hydraulic fracturing in California, when it was allowed, there was a study in 2015 by Lawrence Berkeley National Lab that showed fracking in California used less water than other shale plays. It did not extend oil field boundaries. In other words, it was employed in the existing oil fields that have been drilled and developed for 120 years. It reduced carbon intensity per barrel. Because because you're increasing the production, but you're not needing as much equipment to get it out, or in some cases you're not using natural gas to fire a steam generator. So you're lowering the carbon intensity of your barrel of oil produced. There was no evidence of groundwater contamination, because in the places where our oil fields exist on the west side, where fracking was taking place, there are no USDs to foul. So it is not threatening the water quality for anybody's agricultural well or anybody's drinking water. So if you read that 2015 report, which obviously I did, you would want more fracking in California, and it would further support the fact that there are billions of barrels of reserves or resources in place in California. In 2018, we had more proved oil reserves in the county of Kern than the entire state of Colorado. And to put that in perspective, today, Colorado is the third largest producing state in the country. There's more proved reserves in Kern County than that entire state. That's what we're talking about here. That's what President Trump and Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum and Secretary Zeldin need to hear, because it's something on the order of 30 billion barrels of resources just in Kern County.
This is such a national security issue that as a United States citizen, I would not normally even utter these words. But nationalizing the refinery for our military almost makes sense, to just put Governor Newsom out on a raft and throw him out there and let the sharks play with him for a while. But we have got to have our military with diesel, with jet fuel, and everything else. And it almost makes sense that this is an executive order, has to happen to protect our military, our gasoline, and our diesel in California. Is that an unfair statement, or am I just smoking crack?
That's very fair. I summarize it with 2 sentences when we talk about Governor Newsom. There's a 1 second pause between the sentences. First sentence is, Governor Newsom is doing a fantastic job. Pause, of killing the California economy. He couldn't do a better job.
Man. But, if we don't get federal, when is Newsom's last term over?
26.
So he's in his last year?
Turns out next year.
Who is the next supposed front runner?
I don't know. There is one at this point. I don't know.
But Newsom still has his eyes set on running for president.
He's only a good-looking version of Kamala Harris that has the brain power of a potato bud. Kamala where Gavin is dangerous is because he's a smooth talker. But I think people are onto him. I don't know that he would have a chance.
We'll see.
I think the whole Democratic Party is in shambles, obviously. There is no clear leader. There is no clear vision for how to frame an appropriate energy policy that people can afford. So I think it's just something that we need to recognize. This is an emergency, like today. I know we're talking about 2026, but we got to solve it now, because the voter fraud issue, I got shut down a bunch by saying, hey, voter fraud, and then you get shut down. By the way, I think there's voter fraud in California and Texas. Texas just booked 6 people for voter fraud. They shut a whole organization down for printing ballots. It happens in the U.S. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If we don't get U.S. citizens voting only in our elections, we're going to have some problems. Yeah, well, I think I don't really study voter fraud, but I think there is tremendous fraud happening. Yes. The fraud that I look at is at the gasoline pump.
Oh, snap.
we're paying $17+ billion a year in California at the gasoline pump in state taxes and climate fees that is funding things like the California high-speed rail. I live in North County, San Diego. The actual rail, just the Amtrak, the one line that we have currently, the snail rail, whatever you want to call it, is falling into the ocean. The cliffs are crumbling in Del Mar, in Solana Beach, across North County, San Diego. So they need billions of dollars just to fix the one rail line that connects San Diego, where you have a port and where you have Marines, Navy, other installations that need delivery of product via freight. It goes on that rail. So it's one of those things where there's fraud happening at the pump that we're paying in gasoline taxes and fees. It's going to special projects like high-speed rail that are going to cost $40 billion and never be completed. Meanwhile, the existing infrastructure is crumbling. And those are the things you see a lot of people on X that are San Diego locals, Los Angeles locals, just people like me posting selfies of, hey, I'm in front of this, crumbling sidewalk in downtown LA. Hey, I'm looking at this homeless encampment right here. Hey, I'm looking at, and starting to think about the rail that's crumbling. That wouldn't it be nice to have our existing Amtrak and freight line available in 20 years? Well, let's fix that first. So all of these things. And I think that's another beautiful part that is going to weed out the voting issues, because President Trump, Secretary Zeldin's been to the Tijuana sewage spill happening just south of me, fouling our waters for our Navy SEALs to train in. They're starting to shine a light on all of these all of these big problems in California. But, when you kind of start shining a light on the whole state, you realize, wow, this really has national implications, security risk, cost of goods, everything.
You're about to go there, Ronald?
No, we're in Hollywood. It's showtime.
No, you look like you were about to say something, and I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I'm just listening, and Mike's 100% correct, and you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy.
If we get, and A, I don't think peak oil is here. B, I think peak Permian oil may be here because of water. And that goes back to my other comment about water in Kern County. The water mismanagement in California is pathetic. The number of dams that have been closed shows up with a Palisades fire. And then the regulatory processes, oh my gosh, that whole thing is just another mess. But we'll leave that for somebody else to cover those bad dogs. The EIA just put out the 3 states of Washington, Oregon, and California look to have a 7% increase in hydroelectric power this year, which is fantastic. But you look at the number of dams that have been torn down between those 3 states, it's pathetic, because they tore down good working electric providing dams that they had fish ramps to and had absolutely no reason to tear them down, except for the NGOs trying to do climate good in their view, and they tear down good working hydroelectric dams. I don't get it.
Save the minnow.
Yeah, I don't get it. So
the irony is that the climate has saved the grid on the West Coast the past 3 years because it's been so rainy and it's filled the reservoirs and it's brought back, to the EIA's data, it's brought back hydroelectric capacity. So the climate has actually saved the grid in the recent years. But when if you're removing that infrastructure, it's going to create a bigger problem down the road when we have like 2020, when the reservoirs were not full and we all got the text message to turn off our appliances and unplug our electric vehicles in California because we don't have enough power. And that massive issue is very much lurking in the shadows. People only talk about this issue when we're actually out of power.
Right.
There is no more power in California. Try to build a project in California that's going to require power, and the utilities will tell you, we can't service you.
I just did a report on AI. I've got a new podcast series coming out with AI and the impact in energy. And I did a study and I looked at where can data centers be rolling out in the United States. Guess where they're not rolling out? They are not rolling out in California, Washington, Delaware, New Jersey, New York. Can you see a pattern?
Power and permits.
Power and permits and Democrat run. And this is absolutely pathetic that you cannot plan. The other big one that's coming around the corner is natural gas power plants. The turbines have been sold out for the next 4 years. So not only are we limited by the number of turbines that we can put in, you can't attach enough. We're going to turn into Spain very quickly. In Barcelona, in that peninsula, they lost solar power for 3 seconds. Yeah. 3 seconds, and 55 million people went without power.
Right.
You know, the irony of the whole thing is, because of what Mike's been talking about and you've been talking about, Stu, is that California imports more electricity than any other state in the country. We import about 30% of our electricity, and most of it's coming from coal-fired power plants outside the borders of California. Defies logic.
Natural gas-fired plants, and so we're importing 30% of that product, and 43% of our grid is still natural gas-fired. So again, back to that hybrid discussion. It's very much a hybrid grid now. You need all of it, and when you don't have that inertia on the grid, the lights go out. And
oops,
it's no bueno in California.
Yeah, no bueno.
The lights go out.
In my particular situation, I've got one of my solar panel sets and a solar panel generator that's I've got not only twin propane powered generators, so I've got big propane tanks as backups, but I also have it set up so that I can have solar power and everything else. And I took one of my sets up to my neighbor. He's been 4 days without power. And so I just brought some of my spare gear up to him. And the reason I'm saying this is, we all need to prepare, no matter if it's a natural disaster or a man-made cyber attack. The other big thing that just came out that is hitting the wire is the Chinese spyware that is in the solar panels and the SCADA equipment. Oops. So as California is putting in more of this crap on the grid, solar panels are a major problem with the equipment.
Well, so, I think we've actually peaked in terms of solar installations and lithium batteries, or near peak.
That's great news, but it's still bad.
Well, we're vulnerable, and you're still going to have to replace the photovoltaic cells every 20 years and the batteries every 3 to 5 years or whatever.
Right.
So we're peaking there because the grid cannot handle more photovoltaic. We already have the duck curve. You already have negative pricing during the day. Texas is now facing a duck curve scenario. And so I talk often about the fact that everybody, don't California my Texas, don't do it. Well, you did it to yourself then, because now you have a duck curve, and now your energy prices are going to go up. And it's
I resemble that remark. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's but I think Texas is going to continue to deploy significant amounts of photovoltaic and lithium batteries till it gets to this breaking point that it's already got in California, where PG&E and again the utilities are saying we don't want your solar and lithium interconnection request. We don't want it. We can't handle any more of it. That's what's happening. And that's why you're seeing microgrids being developed. You're seeing real estate developers and commercial developers and any kind of a developers. If they're building something in California, they're saying, okay, how do I build my own power plant? Because I can't get power. I can't interconnect because everything is literally toast. It's toast.
And if you're an AI data
in less than 7 or 10 years. So yeah, if you're an AI, you're a data center and you're someone, oh, okay, we'll build you a data center in 2040. Okay, that's about when we can get you your permits and your power. How's 2040 sound? Nah. That's the proposition in California, literally.
Yeah. Wow. The number one places to build a data center are Texas and Pennsylvania. Why?
Maybe fastest growing. There's also Virginia and Arizona.
Well, right now it's the pipelines.
Yeah.
The pipeline and the Marcellus are up in both of those, in Pennsylvania and up in there. And so you take a look at where you can get natural gas. You can kick a rock very much like you can in California. And natural gas is very nicely well done in the Marcellus, the Haynesville, and in Texas. So it just depends on where that is. What do you guys?
And you're also, how do you solve the backlog? You're 4 years out for a turbine.
It's exactly right. We're limited. We're seeing some huge limitations. And until we get the steel done, how is steel made? You can only make green steel with wind power, but you have to use recycled steel. You can't use new ore. So you got to use coking coal.
Well, coal is back.
King Coal is not, I'm not quite dead yet. Like my favorite movie, Monty Python. I'm not quite dead yet. What do you see coming around the corner, guys, other than oil in Kern County going, I'm not quite dead yet?
Well, the reality is this, limiting the local supply of fuels and the products made from oil without reducing the demand doesn't solve the climate challenge. It just simply shifts the environmental and social impacts overseas, often to countries with less stringent environmental protections and less stringent labor laws. So we exploit people in poor countries so we can go green.
Wow.
You want the Kern County forecast?
Yeah, you just tell me what you think.
So here's what I think will happen. I think the BLM will open up leasing and drilling and hopefully
Bureau of Land Management.
Yes, and hopefully hydraulic fracturing on BLM lands in Kern County and across California, but specifically Kern County. I think we will see President Trump and Secretary Wright visit Bakersfield to highlight the national security issue, the fact that we have naval petroleum reserves in Kern County. We have huge potential in Kern County, but sadly, I don't think the industry is going to be able to bounce back, certainly not in time to save California from this self-induced energy crisis. I think we're going to have $8 to $10 gasoline. I think we're going to continue to have the highest utility bills in the country. I think you're going to see an exodus of population from California. I know we saw a lot of people leave and then they opened up the borders and then people came back illegally. And the people of California that are actually from California are now burdened with paying for people that are illegally here. So I think you're going to see the administration again deporting people and getting California to its roots and to a sustainable situation, at least from whatever the federal government can control. And then hopefully we see 2026 and 2027 politicians that are elected that care about affordable, reliable energy. I don't care if they're a Democrat or a Republican, really, as long as they start to recognize their policies are hurting those that can least afford it. And if you're poor, you don't care what someone's ideology is. You care about someone bringing you affordability. That's all they care about. And so whoever brings that message is going to control Sacramento. And so we're also, that's kind of the last thing I'll say is I think California is going to slowly boomerang back to the middle, where you're going to have policies that are not all or nothing electrification, but are recognizing that the rest of the United States is going to pass us by because they will have affordable, reliable energy. They will have permitting. They will have an unleashed framework. So we need to unleash California, but it's going to take a long time to fix this problem. This is a crisis.
Governor Newsom really left his mark in California, and it was kind of like Biden's underpants.
Yeah. Well, and it's the supermajority too. It's a whole groupthink mentality that's been building in Sacramento since the early 2000s. The best thing President Trump could do is revoke the tax exempt status of any entity related to the Sierra Club, Center for Biologic Diversity, any of the NGOs that are literally, they score how the politicians in Sacramento vote. Sierra Club has a report card. How can a tax exempt entity, and I know they have several entities, some of which are not tax exempt, but how can that framework exist where a dark money NGO, climate catastrophe Sierra Club can literally control the votes of elected officials in Sacramento with a scorecard they publish every time they vote?
That's crazy.
Are you kidding me? I mean, that's that. And so I think President Trump has talked about this, about revoking their tax exempt status. So I think, I think that my opinion is that's more important than anything Governor Newsom says or does.
I did not know that.
That is the level of importance of eliminating the Sierra Club's tax exempt status.
Wow.
Couldn't say it any better. I agree 100%.
Wow. Do you have anything to pig pile on that?
It's more crap on crap.
It's the beauty of what President Trump is doing. He's dismantling all of this at the federal level, and he's going to work his way. We're seeing it. We're only 115 days in.
Yeah.
It's not, we all need to push for 4 years to give President Trump and those that are in Washington, D.C., these very specific examples. Please destroy the Sierra Club. Thank you. Please
have a great day. And
we gotta just put a pin exactly where it needs to go.
You know, it's kind of like Dr. Patrick Moore, when I interviewed him twice, who was the founder of Greenpeace. Love him. Greenpeace, when it was started, actually was a good organization in the first 15 years. I always thought it was a bunch of crazies all the time. I enjoyed my two-hour, each one was 2 hours with him. He was brilliant. He was on target, and the organization got hijacked, and I believe the Sierra Club may have gotten hijacked as well too over the time.
May. No, the Sierra Club is way out in left field. About as far, they're in foul territory. They're so left field.
Wow. I love it.
I mean, you're talking about the dam removals. Sierra Club, I guarantee you, is on a lawsuit to remove the dams. You talk about, natural gas bans, internal combustion engine bans. All of these things that we're talking about are front and center issues. It's the main reason the Sierra Club exists today, is to scare the general public into thinking that their appliances and their vehicles are killing them when they're not. And then to make these things cost prohibitive by filing lawsuits against developers of energy projects that are trying to provide affordable, reliable, local, clean energy to the people of California. It's an evil organization that needs to be destroyed.
Right. Wow. I like the way you think. Okay. Well,
I'm much more stoked to pile on to these organizations than these elected officials, because it's too partisan when we're bashing Newsom, for me anyway. I mean, I think Newsom, I think the root of his ideology is the Sierra Club, which is probably a massive donor to his political career.
That makes sense.
And all of these politicians. So those politicians are just the figureheads, and they're just parroting whatever the Sierra Club wants them to say.
Well, I absolutely respect you and your opinion, both of you, Ronald and Mike. Ronald, how do people find you?
Just Google my name, Ronald Stein, Energy Literacy, and it'll pop up. And I'm all over the internet, so you can contact me.
And Mike, how do people find you?
please visit our website, energyandscience.com, and get involved with Californians for Energy and Science.
I love it. Well, thank you all so much for coming by the podcast. And I think we made some headway. And if we can get President Trump on a podcast to talk about this, let's see if we can get him a little more involved in this national security problem that we got here, because this is huge. And I'm not seeing it being talked about in this light as a national security issue.
It's coming. It's coming. The Olympics and the World Cups are coming to a Los Angeles where half the city's burned down and they can't get permits. So President Trump's not going to let that happen. The next 180 days, I think you're going to see get a big physical exam from the federal government.
Well, with that horrible thought and that snap of a rubber glove, we will call this a show.